Hi, I'm Leslie Recinos and a member of the Opening Stage Door Planning Committee and a participant in Roundabout's Theatrical Workforce Development Program. I am a Latina woman with shoulder-length curly brown hair, wearing a green t-shirt with a Christmas tree in my background. I'm currently in my living room. Um, Thank you all for joining us for our second keynote, Envisioning the Future Participant Voices. I'd like to address a couple of things before we begin. To ensure this event is accessible for all attendees, we ask that after you introduce yourself, that you provide a brief visual description of your appearance, as I did at the start of my introduction. Additionally, if you are going to show any slides or videos, please briefly describe their contents. This session is being ASL interpreted and live captioned. If you would like to access the captions, navigate to the toolbar on the right of your screen where the chat feature is located, and click the tab entitled Captions. Our captions are being provided in real time, so thank you to our team of live captioners. A reminder that this session will be taped and available online for 90 days following the event. Please use the stage chat function on the right of your screen to interact with our attendees during the event or to post questions for the panelists. Be aware, this is different than the event chat, which is meant to be a general conversation for the full convening. Before the session begins, I'd like to acknowledge that I'm coming to you from New York City, which is the unceded ancestral land of the Lenape, Wappinger, Canarsie, Rockaway, and Matanaca communities. We want to honor and celebrate all of these indigenous communities, their elders, past and present, as well as future generations. We also want to take this time to acknowledge that after there was stolen land, there were stolen people. We want to honor the generations of displaced and enslaved people that built and continue to build the country that we occupy today. Even the technologies that are central to much of the art make significant that we make significant carbon footprints contributing to changing climates that disproportionately affect indigenous peoples worldwide. We invite you to join us in acknowledging all this as well as our shared responsibility to make good of this time and for each of us to consider our roles in reconciliation, decolonization, anti-racism, and allyship. To find which tribes reside and or have resided in your area, visit native-land.ca. If you're familiar with land acknowledgements, we've provided a link with some general information from the National Museum of the American Indian and the Native Governance Center. We recognize the land acknowledgements are only the first step in repairing relationships with Indigenous communities, and in this spirit, for each acknowledgement read during the convening, we have made a donation to the Mana-Hana Fund to support the work of Indigenous artists in the New York State, and continue the conversation by using the hashtag opening stage doors. As one of the curators for this session, I am so excited to begin this session. We've invited 3 recent workforce participants, Rafael Abdulmajid, Evelyn Danner, and Emily Marroquin, to share their experience first via videotape and then in discussion with Ava Kinsey, the Director of Education at the Brooklyn Academy of Music. If you have any questions for any of the panelists, please put them in the stage chat. Now let's get started.
My name is Emily Marroquin, pronouns she, her. This summer, I was a marketing intern at Center Theater Group, and now I work in TV development. The best part of the Center Theater Group internship program was the fact that it was really project-based. I actually had the opportunity to nurture a project for the entire summer, and I'm seeing it launch next week. The best lessons that I've learned from it are totally how to manage a project, get on deadlines. I feel like I had never really had the experience to work on a singular project and really put my entire heart into it. So that meant that I got to learn how to schedule, contact people interdepartmentally, and then also actually see the results of a project, which I'm super excited to see next week. I did do this internship during COVID, so I was all on Zoom, but there was so much communication. I was constantly in meetings. Although I was on the marketing team, I was constantly in communication with education, ticket sales, and that's really what made it memorable. I wasn't just alone on my computer screen. I was really communicating with everybody and trying to figure out all of the aspects of the project. I was being compensated through the LA Arts Internship Program, so that meant that Center Theater Group wasn't paying me directly, but this external program was. I did feel that my compensation was fair as it matched the rates of other internships, and also my bosses made sure that I wasn't working overtime and I was making sure that I was putting what I was supposed to put into my time so that I was being compensated fairly and that my labor was being overworked. The fact that the internship was compensated allowed me to go to school the following semester. I wouldn't have been able to afford to take an unpaid internship and go to school at the same time. So I was really thankful for Center Theater Group to partner with the LA Arts Internship Program to have students be compensated for their work. I felt really cared for at Center Theater Group. I had daily meetings with my boss in the morning and in the afternoon, so 15-minute check-ins that really made sure that we were both on the same page. And also we had a weekly development sessions, which meant that we were going over resumes, cover letters, and what it really means to have a career in theater, which really made me feel like not only they wanted me to succeed in the moment, but they were also investing in me succeeding in the future. Coming in as a young intern of color, I really felt that I was able to disrupt the whiteness that we see in theater. Center Theater Group is in downtown LA, which is predominantly communities of color. And I felt like Center Theater Group needed a program that was going to bridge the gap that we see between Center Theater Group and those communities. And I felt like my ideas were able to invite audiences instead of making it separated or keeping them out. And I felt like more theater companies should be looking into, how to bridge the gap between their audiences and the communities that they serve, and also just their companies as a whole and their values. And I feel like I was able to bring in constructive criticism that actually helped the company, look at their community in a different way. One thing that I didn't realize I was until I did the internship was I'm strategic. I just thought I had a ton of ideas and I didn't know what to do with them. But during my end of internship evaluation, my boss actually told me that I'm very creative and very strategic, and that the fact that I have so many ideas isn't something negative, but it's actually something really positive. And that has actually given me confidence to go into other internships and not be afraid to share all of my ideas and find unique ways to connect them and make them even greater and nurture them into something bigger. One piece of advice that I'd give to somebody who's entering a workforce program is not to be afraid to put your ideas out there. There are many times where I felt like I didn't want to share something or wasn't confident enough, but once I did have that confidence, my team was really surprised and actually wanted to implement my ideas into different projects. For example, the In the House program that I helped launch, I was able to have a nonprofit organization partner with CTG for a year long, and now they're going to be receiving tickets to almost every CTG show, which means that families, students, and organization members are going to have the opportunity to develop a relationship with CTG, and hopefully they stick around and be audience members in the future. A message I would share with executive at theater companies who aren't sure about implementing a workforce program is, number one, you should, and number two, you should really value the people that are coming in through these programs. For me, one of the key highlights of my internship was the fact that I really did feel valued, which gave me confidence to share my ideas. If it would have just been me being ignored or me giving tasks that I didn't feel were important or contributed anything to the team, I really wouldn't have had such a great experience or gotten so much out of it. And I feel like the fact that I was valued and I was talking to so many different teams that saw me as an asset to their company, I really was able to put my best foot forward and create something that was amazing and that I'm going to see the impact of for years to come.
My name is Evelyn Danner, she, her. My workforce experience was at the Goodman Theatre in Chicago. I started in January 28th, 2019. The duration of the program was 18 months, but 5 months were lost to the pandemic. Currently, after a long rest at home, I am back at the theater, at the Goodman. We started back in August, and I'm working in the costume shop as a stitcher and everything else that can be done. I also will be costume designing a show at the Goodman in January. I was working as a substitute teacher when a friend of mine who was also in theater, she's an actress and a writer, tagged me on a post from the Joyce Foundation. They were looking for people for a workforce program in costume design and the costume department. Costume apprentice is what they called it. And she just threw it out there. hey, I think Evelyn might be interested in that. And I saw it and I'm like, oh, I am interested in that. And so during my lunch hour, I applied, and a week and a half later, I got an email back for an interview. So pay attention to your friends. There are people who are able to give you information about things that are out there that you're not aware of. One thing I got from the workforce program that I didn't have before was a network of people to help me. My friend reached out to me, and it changed my life. And hopefully, the connection with my new Goodman friends will continue to enrich my life. I went to college, and my college experience did not lead me to the place of happiness in my work. But when I was in college, I didn't get to go on an internship because they were not paid. At the time, they were not paying. Me, being an independent student, could not go a summer without working to earn money to come back to college. So workforce paying for an apprenticeship was absolutely fabulous. And I think it's if I were given that opportunity earlier, I might not have gone to college. Being able to work with all the departments was great. When I started, we kind of started slow because there was no show going on. But once the show started, it was working on shows constantly. Now, those are great. But I think what could have been changed is that, there wasn't much time to stop and reflect and learn and reflect on what you learned in that show. I think the Goodman definitely respected my life experience. I thought about that a lot. I'm thinking, I said, why does this older person want to, work in theater or keep working? She must be about ready to retire. I'm not ready to retire. I'm not that old either. But yes, and actually they really embraced the things that I already knew. I think that was probably the best thing about it, is that I learned all of the things that I do instinctively were right. I would not change the work environment. I was able to work with a lot of different people. I think it's really important to get information from different sources, and the people at the Goodman were really giving in their information. It was salaried, and we also get full benefits while we were there. So it was good. So financially, I was, maintained fine during that time. I don't know if this is a time to say this, but that is probably one of the things that I like best about it. I think for someone starting a workforce program, it's really important to reach out to the communities that are around your company. You'd be surprised how many people in the community would really want to learn and be in a workforce program if they just knew it were there. I think theater should really start these programs because they want to get fresh people. There are, and of course, diversity. That's a big deal. I don't run into a lot of African Americans in my work. It's getting better because the Goodman does make an effort. What I would say to someone who is entering or wanting to enter a workforce program is to not be afraid, and don't discount the things and the things that you like to do. Don't think that they're not valuable to other people in other venues.
Hi,
Hi, my name is Rafael and I use they them pronouns, and I was a participant in Roundabout Theater Company's Theatrical Workforce Development Program, which is a 3-year-long training program dedicated to providing opportunities for technical theater to people of marginalized identities. And I am in my second year, technically, of the 3-year program. I began my program in fall of 2019 and was just about to enter my second year in March of 2020. And so a lot of my workforce experience has sort of been pivoting around the hurdles that the coronavirus pandemic sort of threw our way. I'm currently working on many things that are related to my field, which I'm very grateful for. Over the summer, I interned for an arts education organization called Exploring the Arts. I am currently working on props for the Music Man revival on Broadway. I am a teaching artist for Roundabout Theater Company, and I am going back to school to finish my degree in theater, and I'm at the City College of New York. One of my favorite aspects of the program was my cohort. I really loved working intensely alongside people with similar ambitions and dreams and aspirations as mine. I really appreciated that the first year of training of TWDP is paid. We are also provided Metro cards. I am so impressed at how the organization was able to holistically approach a program that is geared towards supporting people of marginalized identities. I think that there are a lot of programs that might aim to put marginalized people into positions of opportunity, but once they're there, those people sort of lose the support that they would need to succeed in an environment like that. And I had such a good experience with TWDP in terms of feeling supported through all aspects of my career and also the parts of my life that would affect my career. In year one, we were also offered a range of professional skills and personal development workshops that I thought were so valuable and so supportive in ways that I have not seen other companies provide. For example, a lot of our time in our first year was spent around learning about financial literacy, and part of that approach was parsing apart our personal relationships to money and to poverty, and how to sort of break out of generational cycles. And I think that that was sort of groundbreaking for me. I had never really been part of any institution where that was treated as a realistic priority, not in high school, not in college, and so I think that that was really important to my experience. One thing that I wouldn't change about TWDP is that everybody who works to support the program, and that means program manager, program director, all of the teaching artists involved, are operating from a really clear mission and with really clear values. And that is to support the fellows on the whole as people, and not as numbers, and not as statistics. And I think that every decision that is made by everybody who is supporting the program, as they're making their decisions with that ethos in mind, that has really shaped the positivity of my experience in the program. When it comes to how I was compensated for my time and labor with TWDP, I have to acknowledge two things. The first of which being that the minimum wage in New York is $15 an hour, but that New York living is rapidly outpacing that. And I will also acknowledge that at the time of my first year, I was also living at home. And so the wage that I was being paid was sufficient for me to pay for the expenses that I was covering, but I wasn't paying rent at the time. In general, I also would have liked to have spent more time talking about effective self-advocacy, especially in the workplace. But in life, I think that is a really great skill to have that I think a lot of people are not necessarily taught. Ways of showing up with the right information, ways of showing up for yourself, advocating for a better wage, advocating for equal and fair treatment, advocating for yourself against discrimination, and in learning to advocate for yourself, also learning how to advocate for others. During the application process for TWDP, there are a few parts for it. You have to attend an information session, you submit a written application, you have in-person interviews, and during the written application, the questions that were asked of me were so much more about the person that I am and not the opportunities that I had already been given. It was, I think, the first application of its kind, in my experience, where I didn't have to submit a resume. I did not have to prove to anybody that I had had the experiences that I had had in order to earn a spot in this program. I think that's another sort of trap that a lot of people fall into, or that a lot of predominantly white institutions especially will sort of set, is that they'll create entry-level positions that need several years of experience in order to obtain. And TWDP was absolutely not like that at all. Part of what is exciting about creating pathways into this industry for people who are like me, for people of color, for transgender people, for poor people, what is so exciting about creating those pathways is that there is another phase of this project where I am not the only one of myself in any given room. And then when I'm not the only one of myself in any given room, eventually becoming one of the people who is able to make decisions that really have an impact on all of the people who will be coming after me. Theater, as it exists now as an industry, needs to fundamentally change in many ways. And that includes not just putting more marginalized people on stage, but also populating backstage with people of those lived experiences. And all throughout different corners of the industry. I think that what happens when you put a bunch of people of color on stage, but the show itself still remains inaccessible to the poor, especially, then the work that is being presented is actually not reaching the audiences to whom it would be the most impactful. I think that in a lot of ways that results in another level of objectification. I think in some ways those performances become performances that feel like a superficial engagement with some of the topics at hand, even if those shows deal with things like racism, like police brutality, like poverty, like working class solidarity. I do think that theater, as it is an art form, is incredible. I am so compelled to be a part of theater in any way that I can be, and I have for so much of my life. I am so lucky to be able to know that I love something so much that I want to do it forever. That being said, I do think that the ways that this industry needs to change require imagination and a breadth of diversity across lived experiences.
Hi, greetings. I am Ava Kinsey, the Director of Education at the Brooklyn Academy of Music. I am an African-American female identifying person whose hair is dark brown and in twists. I have on a black blouse with a collar, and I'm sitting in front of a beige wall. It is my honor to welcome you to this portion of the Envisioning the Future Participant Voices panel. And it is my distinguished pleasure to introduce our three keynote speakers, those folks that you just saw deliver their experiences to you in this forum. And so without further ado, I want to welcome Emily Marroquin from Center Theater Group, Evelyn Danner from the Goodman Theatre, and Rafael Abdulmajid from the Roundabout Theater. Welcome, everybody. We're just going to, I think, jump right in to our questions because it's about 12:30 and I want to make sure that we can get through some of the questions that we have and then open up to some of our guests who may have questions. And before I start, I just want to say, those of you who are joining us today, should you have any questions, please drop them in the comment section in the chat and we will make sure that we get to them as soon as we can. All right. So without further ado, I want to say thank you all for sharing your reflections and talking about the impact that your experiences had on you building your career path. So let's talk about that pathway. Let's talk about pathways back to your organizations that you had your internships or fellowships with. Do you feel like there is a clear road back to that organization? And let us know why. And anyone can start. Let's just open it up.
I can go ahead. Hi, Emily Marroquin, pronounced her. I'm a Latina woman wearing a white shirt, have long brown hair, and I'm sitting in front of a beige wall. For me, I do see a clear pathway for people to come back to Center Theater Group. I actually started in a student program at Center Theater Group as a senior in high school through the education department. And that was such a memorable experience because it was one of the first times I actually got to see like theater continuously. I was invited for multiple shows and then got to sit with other students who also were trying to, engage in a theater going experience, and then was able to talk to theater professionals afterwards. And in cultivating the relationship with those students and with the staff at CTG during that time, I was actually invited back to participate in not the full internship yet, but in the professional development sessions, because I had mentioned that I was interested in pursuing a career in theater. And they said, well, why not come and see what there is to offer during our professional development sessions? We can let you know about how to navigate a career in theater, financially, personally, go over resumes. So I would go on a weekly basis for about 3 months and did that for a bit, which was very considerate of them to have even thought about me to come back and participate in those resources. And then about a year and a half later, I applied for the internship and was able to get the internship. So I went from, a student participating in a program all the way into an internship, and then also could potentially be going back for a job in the future. So I really did see that pathway clearly. And also I had coworkers during the internship that were former interns, and they now have, full-time positions at the company. So I really do see that Center Theater Group is committed to the people they're serving through their workforce program and making sure that they, have a clear way to come back.
Thanks for sharing, Emily. Hello, my name is Rafael. I use they, them pronouns. I'm a light-skinned Filipino non-binary person. I have long dark hair, big shiny glasses. I'm sitting in a library. I'm surrounded by books. One of the things that drew me to my program the most was the longevity. My program at minimum is 3 years commitment. And throughout those 3 years, the fellows are constantly being checked in with to see how they're doing as people, and how their aspirations have changed, if they have changed, what their ambitions are becoming and changing over the course of those 3 years. And so with that really personal understanding of each fellow, I think that transitioning to alumni status, when it does happen for me, will also come with a really innate understanding of my goals, that my program has like made an effort to really understand, to really garner. And oh, I lost my train of thought. Longevity, come back to me.
Yes, we definitely will. All right, Evelyn, would you like to weigh in?
Hello, my name is Evelyn Danner. I use she, her. I am sitting in one of our fitting rooms. It is a cream color wall. I have black and white, salt and pepper hair. I have big silver glasses. I have on a black shirt with a gold insert here. And as you can tell, I'm an African American woman. I definitely see a path at the Goodman Theatre. My program was 18 months. I got most of it in, except for 5 months, but I came back. I've been working, once we started back working, the path was open to me. I'm back as a stitcher. And the biggest thing, it's a continuation. I'm now a designer with the theater. I'm designing a show that will be opening in January, Gem of the Ocean. Make sure you see it. But the company is very welcoming. And my skills have been heightened and used and applied to other things. So I definitely see a path. Other interns in other areas have come back and are working in their area and in other areas. But the interns are definitely used and see a path to continue.
Thank you for that, Evelyn. I appreciate that. And there are some things that I'm going to highlight after we go back to Rafael, who is going to share their perspective.
Thanks. I remembered what I was going to say. I am also really fortunate and grateful to be the first fellow from my program to transition into a teaching artistry position with my organization. So to answer the question, yes, my pathway back into the organization has been very clear for me.
Thank you for that. And I want to just highlight a few things that'll kind of segue us into our next question. You all spoke about, well, specifically Emily, you talked about being a participant at Center Theater Group, and then that pathway from participant to employee being a clear one, being one that you felt that one you could do, and two, you felt supported in. So I just wanted to highlight for those of us who are tuning in today, remember the participants, right? Because those are the people who you are not only giving service to, but you are also hoping that will carry the torch of the future of your organization. And so investing in participants can be a myriad of things. It could be the resources, opportunities. It could also be a pathway into a career, into your organization, which is also vital for your mission, your values, and things of that nature. Off my soapbox, going to the next question. Each of you spoke about needing the support at your different stations to be successful and to feel successful on your path. So I really want to hear from each of you and talk to us about what support looked like at the institution you were working at. I think that will help folks who are tuning in today think about how they could support folks who are coming in as interns or at any level of their career at their institutions. So please share your insight there.
For me, support looked like professional development meetings. That meant, cover letters, resumes, looking at, how to negotiate a salary, what are benefits, like those are things I learned because of Center Theater Group, and their staff cared about their importance and passing down that knowledge. But just as an intern, I also just felt really supported by my team. Like I was constantly in meetings every single day. I had a morning check-in and an afternoon check-in with my boss, just to make sure we were on the same page. I did feel like I was part of a team, and although that is like everybody wants that, and it feels like that's a given, I feel like I've had previous internships where I was like, especially when they're on Zoom, I was just kind of left by myself for the day to like figure out what my work was. And the fact that I had so many people that wanted to touch base with me and, communicate and were emailing me and were like, hey, come join this meeting. And although it has nothing to do with your department, like you could see other aspects of the company that you might have not been exposed to. And that kind of support was so great because it felt like they actually wanted me to learn more about the company more than I already had through the student programs. And the fact that I was taking what I was learning in my professional development meetings, back into, future experience and my current experience, I was really learning how to communicate with people. If there was a problem, I could talk to my internship coordinator and be like, look, I have this idea, or I feel, like I want to communicate something that I don't know how to. They're really there to like teach me how to communicate that, especially in a setting that I was not used to. So I did feel really supported in the fact that, I was always being asked to communicate and taught how to communicate. I feel like that also isn't done a lot of internship, like people teaching you how to communicate, how to, properly respond to an email, how how to properly communicate a concern. That was taught to me and that was so valuable. And, that's something I haven't gotten at any other internship.
Thank you for that, Emily. Please, Rafael or Evelyn, we'd like to hear your perspective.
Hello, it's Evelyn. I felt that I was so supported because I was able to work with every aspect, well, not every aspect, but many aspects of the costume department. I was able to work with different sections. I worked in crafts on one show. I mean, we had so many shows I worked in, and they were so different. So crafts in one show. I learned how to ventilate wigs for another show. I stitched on every show, and there were probably 20. Seems like 20 different shows during the time I was there, and so I learned from everyone. But the thing here that I felt so supported is that not only was I involved with the costume department, but other departments. It was like a big family. We had, company parties. I was involved in that too. I was invited to, Christmas, Halloween, and we had great staff parties with the other departments that I wouldn't normally work with. So not only was I learning new things in my own department and getting some skills or showing some skills that I didn't know I had and being validated for those. I have a whole new community of people that I can go to for help. And that's invaluable.
Absolutely. Community is so important. I think some of the things I felt most supported by in my program, to echo a little bit of what Emily was saying, my program is also a partnership with The Door, which is a youth social services organization in New York. And having access to some of those services was so essential in terms of the program understanding the demographic that they served. And so having somebody to go to when I needed mental health or emotional support, but also logistical guidance, somebody I could ask for help when I was navigating enrolling in my own health insurance or embarking on an apartment search in New York City. Having access to an organization that would also help to supplement all of the reasons that I would be able to participate in this program to begin with was essential.
Thank you for that. And that is such a beautiful segue into the next kind of question I want us to dig into. But first, I just want to highlight that community was one of the cornerstones of all of your experiences. That being something that was central to you feeling successful and feeling that you could have a voice and be heard and seen in your space. And I just want to offer that to our guests who are in the room with us too. Building community that being the foundation of folks feeling like they can be set up for success. Also, you all talked about scaffolding your levels of experience. So that was you building upon things that you were learning in your respective positions. So I just also want to highlight that too, because that's going to take us into this next question, which is a bit of a deep dive. So so-called traditional internships sometimes don't pay a wage, or they may give roles and tasks to interns that really do not build upon a skill set that can be transferable out in the world, meaning that they might be going to get coffee, making copies, doing things that are not really honoring maybe why they took the internship to begin with. Those internships, we hope that we are ones that we are kind of transitioning away from into a more holistic reality. But I do want us to kind of juxtapose any experiences that we may have had that have been in those classist, if you will, internship experiences, those traditional non-paid or menial, being seen as not valuable to the institution. Have you all experienced an internship or a setting? It doesn't have to necessarily be just an internship like that. And then how was your experience different when you went to the Goodman or Center Theater Group or Roundabout? Let's juxtapose those two things. I asked a lot. Take part and parcel, or take the whole thing?
I think for me, I was lucky enough that all of the internships I've done have been subsidized through outside programs, which also goes to say that companies need to be reaching out to programs in their community, whether that be the city or the state, that have the money to subsidize students for their internship programs. So for Center Theater Group, it was the LA Arts internship program who I was being subsidized through. So they partnered with Center Theater Group to be able to pay me. And for the most recent internship I did, it was with Group Effort Initiative, which is started off as an initiative with the city of LA to basically compensate students of color who want to go into the entertainment industry. And a lot of the companies offer unpaid internships, but through this program, the students will get subsidized, which I think also goes to say that, yeah, companies need to be able to look at the resources that are outside of just their own company. There's support programs out there that allow you to bring on students without it having to be unpaid. I did a lot of directing work for my old high school, and all of that, although it was very valuable work, I did out of love for the school, out of love for the department that I had helped create. But like that was free labor, and that was like times when we were, doing like 8-hour rehearsals, and I was like leading them and creating this, but that was all unpaid. And although it was such an enriching experience, yeah, I did deserve to be compensated for that. And that's one thing now that, although back then I was in a position where I was able to do that because I had scholarships to go to school, but then that changed, and then I realized, yeah, I can't be taking an unpaid internship anymore, or unpaid experience anymore. I need to be able to have, for me, Center Theater Group that summer paid for my following semester of school. So it wasn't like, oh, I had the privilege to take an unpaid internship. That's not a thing for me. I can't do that. So I also think it's meeting people where they need to be, in terms of, of course, it would be ideal where everybody gets paid, but I feel like some companies still haven't come to the idea that, the people that want to be in their company sometimes might not all have the same background and all have that same privilege. And it's like, why would you take something unpaid that then you're going to be running coffee? It doesn't make sense to me. And I feel like there is so much value in paying your interns. It also just makes me feel like, yeah, I'm going to put my best foot forward because I'm getting paid as well. So I think that does have a lot to do with the work that an intern or workforce employee will put out, and it does affect a lot.
Hi. This is actually my first internship or apprenticeship. When I went to college, there were internships for theater during the summer, but they weren't paid. I know it's been a long time, so things have changed a bit. But as a student, an independent student, there was no way I could even consider an internship that was not paid. Because if I didn't go work, there was no coming back. So the importance of being paid is monumental. You can't try new things if you have to worry about, maintaining. If you can't eat, if you don't have a roof, if you're worried about, the basics, you can't do it. You can't try. You can't look inside yourself and go forward and take risks. That's it. You can't take risks if you can't take care of home. So being able to get a program that was going to pay me so I didn't have to worry and I could think about what I was trying to accomplish is by far the most important. Because you get there if you don't have that opportunity. And at the Goodman, I have never felt that I was given a job that was below me. One thing in my life, I feel like everyone is a team. I will do anything that anyone else on the team is asked to do. Everyone should be able to take some part of it and do it. Work together, we'll get it done. As long as it's something you can do, I can do it too. So as long as it's, it's part of the team effort, whether it's the lowest or the highest, we can all do it. And I can do any of those jobs. So there.
Thank you for sharing. I can speak to my experience of paying to go to school. And so all throughout my college experience, I have also had to work between 2 and 3 or sometimes 4 jobs in order to make ends meet. And I know that fundamentally, my learning experience would be completely different if I were not also having this relationship between my time, my labor, and my survival. I think that an unpaid internship is so prohibitive for so many people who would otherwise be incredibly valuable and brilliant presences at an organization, simply because that they can't afford to spend their time in a way that isn't also being compensated to provide for their survival. I think that I have also done internships where much earlier on when I was in high school, where I was compensated with, a Metro card, which was something, but still I could only do because I was living at home and because I was in high school. And any other further experience was probably not going to be feasible for me with that organization, simply because it wasn't paid.
Thank you all for your reflections. And I just want to say that you all have illuminated not just the why, but you've also why one would need to be compensated, but you've really just driven home the point that equity extends in so many different ways, just from building community support to compensation to scaffolding your skills and really making sure that you are ready for the workforce that you plan to enter into. I want to acknowledge that it is 12:54, and I want to open it up to the folks who are joining us. So should you have any questions, please drop them into the comments. I'll give about a minute for that to happen, and we can let that be our I guess, last moment together, just answering that last question. If not, I do have one more question that could send us off on our way today. So we'll just wait and see if we get any questions in the chat. Okay, we haven't received any yet. Oh, we just lost Evelyn. Evelyn hopefully will join us. But this last question that I want to ask is about representation. In a few of your reflections, you talked about you being, I'll start again since Evelyn, hi, you're back. This last question is about representation. You each spoke in some way about representation in your reflections, about you being that representative force or being. Oh, we do have a question. Let me stop my question. I want to make sure that we get to the folks in the chat. Sorry. This is from Jillian Davis. Thank you, Jillian. What is one thing you would hope to see for other interns in the future?
Less necessity to self-advocate. I would really love for future interns to just never be put in a position where they had to actively advocate for themselves against discrimination or advocate for better treatment in the workplace or for equity. Yes, I would really hope that future interns, again, that organizations are really pivoting their programming around the development and the desires of the communities that they serve.
For me, it's confidence from the perspective of a company, having confidence in the, interns or workforce employees that you're bringing in and treating them as equals in your company. I think for me, that was one of the most valuable things. Is I wasn't, just seen as an intern. I was, leading meetings and doing presentations and all this. And the fact that the workforce program had confidence in me to do that, I mean, it's it's made me more confident in other internships in my personal life. The fact that I know that I have that capability and that others can see that in me has just changed the way that I view my confidence. And having that experience be one of my first internship experience, yeah, that has paved the way for how I approach other internships and how I approach my own confidence. So that is one of the main things, have confidence in the people that you're bringing through the workforce program. Just because they might not have as much experience, it doesn't mean that they can't bring as much to the company as people that have been there for 20 years or 30 years, or, they really can bring in some great ideas.
Well, I think I missed part of what the question was.
Would you like me to repeat it for you?
Could you please?
I sure can. So I took back my question to make sure that the folks who are on the call had space to ask their question. And so this question is coming from Jillian Davis. What is the one thing you would hope to see for other interns in the future?
Well, after they get paid, I would like them to feel supported by the community that they enter. But I think that's it for me. It's the most important thing and the most valuable thing I gained from my apprenticeship was a group of people who were willing to feed me the information they had. They shared so much and were so giving with the knowledge they had and so willing to receive what I had and let me know that it was valuable.
I just want to say thank you to all of our panelists for sharing your brilliance, your insight, your experiences with us here today. Again, this is called Envisioning the Future, Participant Voices. So I would encourage us all to center participant voices in our work as we move forward. It is the reason why we're working, right? So not it, but we are, they are, the young people are, the interns are, the patrons are the reason why we're doing this work. And so let's remember that and center those voices. And I just want to, we have 0 minutes left, but let's just do one word. How are you all feeling about the future of internships in the field? One word.
Encouraged.
Yeah, that's the one I was gonna say. Encouraged, yeah, definitely.
Steadfast.
And I will say hopeful. We hope to continue to have these conversations and make this real connection further in this field. Thank you all for allowing us to just be present with you today. And I'll turn it over to Leslie. Thank you.
Unfortunately, we're out of time. I want to thank Ava, Rafael, Evelyn, and Emily for being a part of today's keynote. We hope that you can join us for today's other sessions starting at 2 and 4 p.m. Eastern. Details on all keynote sessions are available on the main reception page, and a video of the session will be available in the replay section of Hopin in a few hours through the remainder of the convening. Thank you again for joining us.